Well, it seems you're back on the Ajit Shah Kalkoff show, which by now is getting to be the greatest talk show in Chandigarh. And soon we will be hitting the national levels. But one thing is certain that right now I'm extremely worried. You see, Cal here has an iPhone. I don't. I have a Samsung phone. And I'm extremely worried because of a lot of things that are happening in Samsung. Is it possible that I'll get spares for my phone? Will my phone last beyond this year? Will Samsung still be around? Does the warranty hold true? Can you give us some idea as to what is happening in Samsung? Because the moment I read Samsung on my phone, I'm reminded of a headline saying Samsung AI arrested for bribery, corruption. So what the hell is going on?
Yeah, the short version is this. This scandal has been going on for years, and it first made the press a few years ago. Ironically, when the feud between Apple and Samsung broke out in the courts, you may remember that Samsung was sued by Apple for stealing their designs. If you look at Samsung phones and laptops and tablets before the iPhone, before the iPad, you'll see that they just blatantly ripped off Apple, and the courts convicted Samsung of doing that. Unfortunately, the laws are so lax that even with top damages awarded, if a company's rip-off product becomes a success, they can afford to pay the damages. And it may or may not be a tax deduction depending on how they work the books. But the biggest problem with Samsung is that its leaders are a family dictatorship. In other words, what they do is the family runs the company from generation to generation to generation. And to use an analogy, it's like the communist countries that appoint the son of the fearless leader to run the dictatorship into the ground. So for years now, the last couple of years, there have been many articles, you can Google them, about how dysfunctional Samsung is and how the people running it, their only qualifications are that they're a blood relative of, earlier generations of leaders. So Samsung's basic marketing strategy is to release a bunch of products. It's called the spaghetti approach. You throw a bunch of wet spaghetti noodles against the wall, you see what sticks, and you go with what sticks. And because they rush to get products out to ape and copy Apple, and they repeatedly get nailed for it in the courts, what happens is you end up with products that don't go through the rigorous testing like Apple does. And look what happens, like the Note 7, it was banned because it caught fire. Now they've discontinued it. And then you have Android, which is the most fragmented platform on existence for computing, operating system-wise. There's at least 16 versions of Android. So let's say you have an Android phone and it's made by Samsung. Your friend has an Android phone, it's made by Sony. Because there's different implementations of Android, a feature that you may have doesn't exist on his. Whereas Apple, it's consistent. So the problem with Samsung is that they need to bring in outsiders who are competent. Just because you have a famous last name or your father or grandfather founded the company doesn't automatically make you qualified. Now, one other thing. One of the ironies of what's keeping Samsung alive right now are companies like Apple, because what Apple does is they give them a chip design, and Samsung's factories make chips for Apple. It's an Apple designed chip, but Apple doesn't want to spend the money to make the factory. Samsung's got the factories, but they don't have the design know-how. So Samsung makes a lot of money from their competitors because they've got a factory full of robots and workers who will make whatever, even though they're competitors. So if you took out those billions of dollars, Samsung would be in serious trouble. And they are going to be in serious trouble going forward because this scandal has forced the South Korean government, who they basically had on the dole for decades as the largest employer in the country, to force the issue of maybe we should bring in outsiders and break up the family, enterprise.
Makes sense. Thanks.